My wife's family kidnapped my 9-year-old son to teach me respect. They live-streamed him crying, begging. I'm a JSOC task force commander. 14 years. I called my squadron. Within 8 hours we had 23 operators, 4 helicopters. We extracted him at 2 a.m. My father-in-law pulled a gun. 23 laser dots appeared on his chest. He whispered, Who the hell are you?" I smiled. "Your worst nightmare." The Nevada sun hammered down on the airfield as Clint Marsh watched his team run through close-quarters combat drills. 14 years with Joint Special Operations Command had taught him that perfection wasn't a goal. It was a requirement, the kind that kept good men breathing when everything went sideways. His phone buzzed. Regina, his wife's name flashing across the screen, always came with a knot in his stomach these days. 3 years of marriage, and the honeymoon phase, had died somewhere around month 6 when her family really showed their colors. "Yeah," he answered, pulling off his ballistic glasses. "We need to talk about Owen." Her voice carried that particular edge he'd learned to recognize. The one that meant her family had been in her ear again. "What about him?" "He's been disrespectful to my father again." Clint felt his jaw tighten. Almost 9 years old. Smart kid, polite, but he had a spine. And Carol Tompkins couldn't stand anyone who didn't kiss his ring. "Regina, your father told him he was stupid for liking science." Owen corrected him about basic physics. "That's not disrespect. That's being right. You always take his side." "I take reality's side. What does Carol want this time?" The pause told him everything. He thinks Owen should spend a week with them, learn some manners, show proper respect for his elders. "No." The word came out flat. Final. "Clint, he's my father. And Owen's my son." The answer's no. "We've been through this." He could hear her breathing on the other end. Regina had been different when they met. Independent, strong-willed. Then her father had a heart attack 2 years ago, and suddenly the family, that had barely acknowledged her existence, decided she was their project. Carol Tompkins had money. Old real estate money from when Las Vegas was still finding its legs, and he wielded it like a weapon. "Fine," she said finally. "But don't say I didn't warn you." The line went dead. Clint stared at his phone for a moment, then pocketed it. Across the tarmac, his second-in-command, Benjamin Stokes, jogged over. Ben had been with him for 8 years. "Good operator, better friend, problem home?" Ben asked. "The usual in-laws. Man, I keep telling you that family's poison. Tell me something I don't know." Clint had met Regina at a hospital in San Diego. She was a trauma nurse. He was visiting a teammate who'd taken shrapnel in Yemen. She'd been funny, sharp, and completely unimpressed by his military credentials. It was refreshing. They'd married 6 months later in a small ceremony that her family hadn't bothered to attend. Then, Carol got sick, and Regina became obsessed with making things right with her father. The man who kicked her out at 18 for wanting to be a nurse instead of marrying into another wealthy Vegas family. The man who called her worthless for a decade, until he needed someone to feel sorry for him. Now Owen was in their crosshairs. The grandson, the only one who could carry on the Tompkins name properly, according to Carol's delusional worldview. "We're wheels up in 4 hours, Ben said. "Training exercise in Colorado. You good?" "Yeah. Let me check in with Owen first." The call went to voicemail. Not unusual. Owen was probably at his friend's house. Clint left a message. "Hey buddy. Dad going to be gone for a few days. Be good for Mom. Love you." The training exercise in Colorado was routine. High-altitude infiltration scenarios. The team performed flawlessly as expected. But something nagged at Clint the entire time. He tried calling Owen twice more. Voicemail both times. Regina's phone went straight to voicemail too. On the third day, his phone finally rang. "Regina, where is he?" Clint asked immediately. "He's safe." "That's not what I asked." "He's with my family. They're teaching him respect." The words were like ice water in his veins. "Bring him home now. He needs to learn." "Clint, you're too soft on him. My father knows how to raise boys properly." "Your father raised you and your brother. How'd that work out?" "You ran away at 18 and Floyd's been in and out of rehab 3 times. Don't you dare." "I'm coming back tonight. Have Owen ready." "You don't get to make demands. He's staying with us for the week. This is non-negotiable." Clint's hand tightened around the phone. "Regina, I'm going to say this once. Get Owen. Bring him home, or I will come get him myself. You're overreacting. He's fine. He's with family. He's 9 years old." And you gave him to people who think emotional abuse is parenting. I'll be there in 8 hours. She hung up. Ben found him packing his gear with methodical fury. What happened? They took Owen. Took like kidnapped. They're calling it family time. I'm calling it what it is. Clint's voice was controlled, but Ben had known him long enough to recognize the cold rage beneath it. I need a bird back to Vegas. I'll get one ready. One company, not yet. Let me see what I'm dealing with first. The flight back felt like it took days instead of hours. Clint tried Regina's phone 17 times. It went straight to voicemail after the third try. She turned it off. He called the Tompkins estate. No answer. He called Floyd's number. Nothing. When he finally pulled up to his house in Henderson, Regina's car was in the driveway. He found her in the kitchen scrolling through her phone. Where is he? She didn't look up. I told you. With my family. Where exactly? At the ranch. He's fine. Clint, stop being so dramatic. The ranch. Carol's compound in the desert, 40 miles outside Vegas. 30 acres of land, one access road, and a paranoid old man's fantasy of being untouchable. I want to talk to him. He's busy now. Regina. She finally looked at him. You don't get it, do you? You're not in charge here. My father has rights. He has no rights. Owen is my son, not his. Mine. And you just handed him over to people who think psychological torture is discipline. It's not torture. It's teaching respect by isolating a 9-year-old from his parents. That's called kidnapping Regina. Don't be ridiculous. We're family. Clint pulled out his phone. Call your father now. Tell him I'm coming to get Owen. If he's smart, he'll have my son ready when I arrive. You're not going anywhere. My father said if you show up you're not getting past the gate. Is that right? He has security, Clint. Real security. EXEs. Not your military buddies playing soldier. Something in her tone made him pause. How long have you been planning this? She looked away. Regina, how long? 3 months, she said quietly. My father said Owen was being raised wrong. Too soft, too unmanly. He said we needed to fix it before it was too late. 3 months. They've been planning to take his son for 3 months, and Regina had gone along with it. You understand this is over, right? Clint said, us, this marriage. The second you agreed to let them take Owen, we were done. Don't say that. I'm going to get my son. Then I'm calling a lawyer. You'll be hearing from them. He turned to leave. Clint, wait. My father. He said, if you try to take Owen by force, he'll call the police. He'll say you're unstable, dangerous. He has lawyers too. They'll make you look like the bad guy. Clint stopped at the door. Your father doesn't know who he's threatening. He knows exactly who you are. Some military contractor who plays hero. He says people like you are all the same. Bullies with training. Military contractor. Clint almost laughed. Is that what you told him? It's what you are, Regina. I'm a task force commander with JSOC. Do you know what that means? It means you boss around other contractors. It means I command Tier 1 operators who do things your father can't even imagine. It means I have access to resources he doesn't know exist. And it means that if he doesn't return my son in the next hour, he's going to learn the difference between ex-cops playing security and actual special operations professionals. Her face had gone pale. You're trying to scare me. No, I'm trying to save your family from making a mistake they can't come back from. Call your father. Tell him to bring Owen to the front gate in 1 hour. If he does that, I'll take my son and leave. Everyone walks away. And if he doesn't, Clint met her eyes. Then he'll find out what happens when you've threatened a man who spent 14 years learning how to make problems disappear. Carol Tompkins sat in his leather chair watching the security monitors with satisfaction. 10 cameras covered every approach to the property. 6 guards on rotation. The front gate required a code and a physical key. He'd spent good money making this place a fortress. The boy was in the guest house locked in. No phone, no internet. Just time to think about his disrespect. Carol had raised his own children this way. Well, he tried to before Regina turned weak, and Floyd became useless. But Owen was young enough to fix. Smart enough to understand power when he saw it. His daughter Angelica brought him coffee. Not his daughter, his wife. Sometimes he forgot. She was 30 years younger, but that was the benefit of money. Beautiful women married potential. And he had more potential in his wallet than most men had in their entire bloodline. How's the boy? She asked. Quiet now. Cried himself out. Floyd's keeping watch. Floyd Tompkins lounged on the couch, beer in hand. At 35, he still lived off his father's money and still pretended to have prospects. His security company, really just 4 ex-cops he paid to drink and wear uniforms, was the latest in a long line of failures. Clint called. Angelica said carefully. Regina says he's angry. Carol snorted. Let him be angry. What's he going to do? Storm the place? He's a glorified mercenary. Probably can't even get past the gate. Regina said he's important military. They all say that. Trust me, I've dealt with this type before. Strutting around like they're special because they wore a uniform. He'll bluster and threaten then back down when he realizes I have lawyers and money. She said he sounded different this time. Different how? Calm. Carol wave it off. Even better means he's accepted it. The boy stays for a week. He learns respect. Everyone wins. On the monitor, the front gate camera showed a truck pulling up. Single vehicle, single occupant. Carol leaned forward. That him? Floyd checked his phone. Regina says, yes. Want me to tell the guys to send him away? No, let him in. Let's have a conversation, man to man. You sure? I'm sure. Bring him to the main house. I want to look him in the eye when I tell him how this works now. Clint Marsh stepped out of his truck at the front gate. The guard, thick neck, ex-cop bearing, trying too hard to look intimidating, approached with one hand on a sidearm. Help you. I'm here for my son. No visitors. That wasn't a request. Open a gate. The guard smirked. Or what? Clint didn't blink. Or in about 30 seconds. You're going to wish you had. Tough guy, huh? Listen, pal. The guard's radio crackled. Let him through. Boss wants to talk. The smirk faded. The gate rolled open. Clint drove through slowly, taking in a layout. Single access road. Main house at 12. Guest house at 3. 2 guards visible. Probably more inside. Security cameras everywhere. Exactly the kind of setup a paranoid civilian with money would build. Good against random threats. Useless against professionals. Floyd Tompkins met him at the door. Polo shirt, expensive watch. The kind of softness that came from never facing consequences. Clint, been a while. Where's Owen? Safe. Dad wants to talk first. Not interested in talking. Yeah, well, humor him. Unless you want this to get ugly. Clint followed him inside. The house was exactly what he expected. Expensive, tasteless, everything chosen to impress rather than comfort. Carol sat in his study like a king on a throne. All self-satisfied smugness. Clint, sit. I'll stand. Where's my son? He's learning. Don't worry. We're not hurting him. Just teaching him how men behave by locking him in a room. By showing him that disrespect has consequences. You've coddled him, made him soft. I'm fixing that. You have 60 seconds to bring him here where this gets complicated. Carol laughed. Actually laughed. Complicated? Son, you're my house on my land, surrounded by my security. You want to get tough? Go ahead. I'll have you arrested before you make it back to the gate. Is that what you think? It's what I know. Regina told me about your little threats. Military commander, please. You're a hired gun. I've dealt with bigger threats than you over breakfast. Clint's phone buzzed. A text from Ben. Package secure. Extraction ready. Mr. Tompkins, I'm going to give you a choice, Clint said quietly. Bring Owen here right now and I walk away. You never see us again. But you walk away clean. Or I show you what happens when you threaten the wrong person's family. Carol, lean back. You know what I think? I think you're scared. Scared that your wife finally opened her eyes. Scared that your son's going to realize you're not special. You're just a man playing dress up in a uniform. Floyd, Clint said without looking at him. How many guards you have on property? 6. Why? Because in about 90 seconds, they're not going to matter. Carol's smile faded. What did you say? Clint's phone buzzed again. This time he held it up so Carol could see the screen. A live video feed. Night vision. Owen, in the guest house. Door opening. A figure in full tactical gear scooping him up. What the hell? Carol lunged for his own phone. Don't bother, Clint said. Your security system's been looped for the last 40 minutes. Those cameras you're watching, they're showing you footage from an hour ago. Floyd stumbled toward the window. Dad, there's O through the window, visible in the compound's lights. 4 helicopters settled into hover positions around the property. The distinctive sound of rotors filled the air. "Who the hell are you?" Carol's face had gone red, then white. Clint smiled. Regina never asked the right questions. "I'm not a contractor. I'm a task force commander with Joint Special Operations Command. 14 years. I command a squadron of Tier 1 operators who do things people like you pretend don't exist." The radio on Floyd's belt crackled with panic voices. "We have multiple inbound armed contacts. They're everywhere. I brought 23 operators to your compound," Clint continued. "They've been on site for an hour. Your guards never saw them, never heard them. And right now my son is on his way to a safe location while you sit here realizing you've made the biggest mistake of your life." Carol grabbed for a drawer, pulled out a revolver. Old, expensive, probably never fired in anger. He pointed at Clint with shaking hands. "Get out. Get out." Clint didn't move. "Look at your chest, Carol." 23 red dots appeared on Carol Tompkins' torso. Laser sights from 23 different angles. 23 operators positioned throughout the property and the house itself. 23 men who had infiltrated his fortress like it was made of paper. The revolver fell from Carol's hand. "Who?" he whispered. "Who the hell are you?" Clint leaned in close. "I'm your worst nightmare. I'm the father you should never have threatened. And I'm the last man you'll ever underestimate." He straightened up. "My son is safe. My marriage is over. And you're going to live with knowing that all your money, all your security, all your arrogance, meant nothing when it mattered." Floyd had collapsed into a chair. "Dad, what did you do?" "Here's what happens next," Clint said. "You leave Owen alone forever. You don't call, you don't write, you don't try to visit. Regina can see him on neutral ground if she earns that right. But you're done. If I even hear your name in connection with my son, I won't be this nice." "This is nice." Carol's voice cracked. "This is me showing restraint. You live streamed your psychological torture of a 9-year-old to teach me respect. I could have done worse. I chose not to. Don't make me reconsider." Clint walked to the door then paused. "And Carol, next time you think about threatening someone's family, make sure you know who you're threatening first." The helicopters lifted off as Clint reached his truck. Ben's voice came through his earpiece. "Package. Secured. Owen's asking for you. On my way." As he drove past the gate, Clint could see Carol and Floyd in the doorway. Illuminated by the house lights, looking small and defeated. The guards stood in a cluster, zip-tied and confused, probably wondering how they'd been neutralized without ever seeing their attackers. 14 years of training, 14 years of missions, all of it from moments exactly like this, when it wasn't about countries or politics or orders, when it was about protecting what mattered most. His son was safe. That was all that counted. The safe house was 40 minutes outside Vegas, anonymous and secure. Owen ran into his arms the moment Clint walked through the door, and for a long moment neither of them said anything. "You okay, buddy?" Owen nodded against his chest. "I knew you'd come. I told him you'd come." "Did they hurt you?" "No, just they locked me in a room, and Grandpa Carol kept saying you weren't really my dad. That you were weak. I told him you was stupid." Clint smiled despite everything. "Probably not the smartest move. Yeah, that's when they took my phone and started filming me. They said they were sending you a lesson." Owen pulled back his young face serious. "Dad, is Mom okay?" And there it was. The question Clint had been dreading. "Mom made some bad choices, Owen. She let her father convince her that this was okay. That separating you from me was somehow good for you. She's not coming with us, is she?" "No, buddy. She's not." Owen was quiet for a moment. "Okay, just okay. I heard her talking to Grandpa Carol last week. She said you're making me too independent, too free-thinking, that I needed more structure." Owen looked up at him. "Dad, why did she want me to be less like you?" The question hit harder than Clint expected. Sometimes people lose themselves. Your mom. She spent so long trying to earn her father's approval that she forgot what was really important. "Do I have to see them again?" "Only if you want to, and only on your terms." Ben appeared in the doorway. "We should move. Get you to somewhere more permanent while the legal stuff gets sorted." "Where?" "Got a place in Colorado. Remote, secure, good schools nearby when you're ready." Clint looked at Owen. "That sound okay? Fresh start. Will there be mountains?" "Lots of them then." "Yeah. Okay." Later that night, after Owen had fallen asleep in the bedroom, Clint sat on the porch with Ben. The stars were out clear and bright in the desert sky. "Regina's already lawyered up," Ben said, claiming you violated a dozen laws with the extraction. Let her try. They kidnapped Owen, live-streamed it. I have the video. You going to use it? If I have to. But I'm hoping she's smart enough to settle quietly. And Carol, he's done. I made my point. He touches Owen again. We have a different conversation. Ben was quiet for a moment. You know, the brass is going on a debrief, using assets for personal business. I use my team, my time off, my birds. Nothing official. Still, they're going to ask questions. Let them. I'd do it again. Yeah, I know. Hell, we all would. Ben stood up. Owen's a good kid. You raised him, right? Tried to anyway. No, man. You did. Kids got spine, guts, heart. That's all you. After Ben left, Clint sat alone with his thoughts. 14 years of service, missions across 5 continents, operators who trusted him with their lives. And yet nothing had prepared him for the cold fear of losing his son. Regina had called it overreacting. Carol had called it weakness. Floyd had called it drama. They didn't understand. They'd never understand. There were men who talked about family like it was a concept, a possession, something to control and shape. And then there were men who would burn the world down to keep their family safe. Clint Marsh had just shown them the difference. Inside, Owen stirred, called out, "Dad, right here, buddy. Okay, just checking. Always here, I promise." The next morning brought sunshine and legal papers. Regina's attorney was expensive and aggressive. Exactly what Clint expected. The initial filing accused him of kidnapping, assault, terroristic threats, and a dozen other charges that wouldn't stick, but would make noise. Fine, let them make noise. His attorney was a former JAG officer named Sarah Towns, and who specialized in military family law. She took one look at the charges and laughed. "They're reaching," she said. "You extracted your son from an illegal detention. Everything you did was defensive. They'll claim Owen was just visiting family. A visit requires consent from both parents. You never consented. They took him without your knowledge or permission after explicitly threatening you. That's parental kidnapping, regardless of their relationship." "What about the extraction? Did you hurt anyone?" "No. Damaged property? Just some zip ties and egos?" Sarah smiled. "Then they've got nothing. In fact, I'd argue we could press charges against them. Kidnapping, child endangerment, making terroristic threats. Take your pick. I don't want charges. I want custody and a clean divorce. You'll get both." Regina's playing this like she has leverage. She doesn't. The moment she admits to planning the kidnapping, and she will because she doesn't think it was wrong, she loses all credibility with any family court judge. How long? 3 months, maybe less. You've got a clean record, stable employment, and a clear history of being Owen's primary emotional caregiver. She's got a history of enabling her family's abuse. Easy win. But it wasn't easy. Not really. Because while the law might be straightforward, the human cost was complicated. Regina called that afternoon. Clint almost didn't answer. "What do you want?" "I want to talk about Owen. Talk to my lawyer." "Clint, please. I made a mistake." "You didn't make a mistake, Regina. You planned to take our son for 3 months. You participated in his kidnapping. You stood by while your father psychologically tortured him. Those aren't mistakes. Those are choices." "My father said." "I don't care what your father said. You're a grown woman. You made your choice. Now live with it. Can I at least talk to Owen? When he's ready, if he's ready, he's my son too." "Then you should have acted like it." He hung up before she could respond. Owen was in the guest room playing with his tablet. Safe, secure. But there was a distance in his eyes that hadn't been there before. Something lost. "Hey buddy. How you feeling?" "Okay." "Mom called your phone, didn't she?" "Yeah. Do I have to talk to her?" "Not if you don't want to." "Will she be mad?" "Maybe, but that's not your problem to fix." Owen set down the tablet. "Dad at the ranch. Grandpa Carol said you were lying about your job. That you were just a security guard or something. He kept saying you weren't special. What do you think?" I think Owen paused. "I think those helicopters were pretty special." Clint laughed despite himself. "Fair point. Why does he hate you so much?" "Because I don't need him. Because I don't worship him. Because I have something he'll never have. Real respect from people who matter. Like your team. Like my team. And like you." Was quiet for a moment. "Dad, when you came to get me, were you scared? Terrified?" "Really. Every second until I knew you were safe. But you still came." "Of course I came. You're my son. There's nothing I wouldn't do for you. Owen hugged him, then tight and fierce. Thanks for coming, Dad. Always. The legal proceedings moved faster than expected. Regina's attorney tried to paint Clint as dangerous, unstable, a threat to his own family. Sarah Townsend demolished every argument with documentation, witnesses, and Regina's own text messages planning the kidnapping. The judge, an older woman named Florence Harmon, who'd seen every custody game in the book, listened to both sides for exactly 90 minutes before rendering her decision. Mrs. Marsh, you participated in the kidnapping of your own son. You facilitated his illegal detention. You enabled emotional abuse. Your attorney could dress it up however he wants, but the facts are clear. Mr. Marsh acted appropriately to protect his child from a credible threat. A threat you helped create. Regina's face crumbled. Your Honor, you were trying to appease your father at your son's expense. That's not parenting. That's cowardice. Judge Harmon turned to Clint. Mr. Marsh, I'm awarding you full physical and legal custody. Mrs. Marsh will have supervised visitation rights to be exercised at Owen's discretion contingent on completing family therapy and demonstrating a pattern of putting her son's needs before her father's demands. Thank you, Your Honor. Don't thank me. You did what any decent father would do. I'm just recognizing reality. Outside the courthouse, Regina caught up to him. Clint, wait. He stopped, but didn't turn around. I'm sorry, she said quietly. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm sorry. You were right about my father, about everything. You let them take Owen, Regina. You watched them hurt him, and thought it was justified. I know I was wrong. I was so wrong. Yeah, you were. Can I at least write to him? Let him know I'm sorry. That's up to him, not me. Will you tell him I love him? He knows, but you're going to have to prove it through actions, not words. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I understand. Clint walked away. He felt no satisfaction in her pain, but he felt no guilt either. She made her choices. Now she had to live with him. Owen was waiting in the car with Ben. How'd it go? We won. Full custody. Does Mom have to go to jail? No. But she has to earn the right to see you again. Good. Went back to his tablet, then paused. Dad, I'm glad it's just us now. Me too, buddy. Me too. 6 weeks later they settled into their new life in Colorado. The house was smaller than the one in Henderson, but it felt more like home. No pretense, no performance, just Clint and Owen figuring out their new normal. Owen started school and thrived. Made friends, joined the science club, even convinced Clint to help him build a model rocket that promptly exploded on its maiden launch. Guess we need better fuel ratios, Owen said, surveying the wreckage, or a bigger field or that. Regina called once a week, supervised calls that Owen sometimes took and sometimes didn't. She'd started therapy, according to her messages, was trying to understand how she'd lost herself, was working on setting boundaries with her father. Too little, too late maybe. But at least she was trying. Carol, on the other hand, hadn't learned a thing. The first letter arrived 3 months after the custody hearing. Legal threats, accusations, demands for grandparental rights. Sarah handled it with a single response letter that reminded Carol of his own illegal actions and suggested he might want to avoid drawing legal attention to himself. The second letter came 2 weeks later. More threats, darker implications. Carol had hired a private investigator to dig into Clint's military record, looking for something, anything, to use against him. He found nothing. Clint's service record was classified, compartmentalized, and locked behind so much red tape that even a federal subpoena would take years to process. The third letter included photographs. Owen at school, Owen at home, Owen playing in the yard that crossed a line. Clint sat in his kitchen, staring at the photos, feeling the familiar cold fury building. He'd given Carol a chance and out, a way to walk away clean. The old man had chosen escalation instead. Fine. He made 2 phone calls. The first was to Ben. I need a favor. Name it. Carol Tompkins. I need everything. Financial records, business dealings, personal dirt. Everything. Going after him. He sent surveillance photos of Owen. Hired a PI to follow my 9-year-old son. Yeah, I'm going after him. Say no more. Give me 48 hours. The second call was to an old friend from his pre-JSOC days. A man named Gabriel Vasquez, who'd left the military to work in corporate security. and developed a talent for finding information that people wanted hidden. Clint Marsh. Hell, it's been years. What do you need? Background check on a civilian. Deep dive. The kind that finds skeletons. How deep? Bone deep. This guy threatened my kid. I want leverage. Legal leverage. Understood. Send me the details. 48 hours later, Ben and Gabriel delivered. Carol Tompkins was dirty. Not obviously. Not in ways most people would notice. But the signs were there once you knew where to look. Shell companies, offshore accounts, real estate transactions that didn't make sense until you followed the money to construction firms with mob connections. The old man had built his fortune on a foundation of fraud, money laundering, and strategic partnerships with people who made problems disappear the old-fashioned way. This is good, Clint said, reviewing the files. This is very good. What are you going to do? Ben asked. I'm going to give him a choice just like I did before, except this time he's going to take it. Clint flew back to Vegas alone, drove to the Tompkins compound in broad daylight, walked right up to the front gate. The guard recognized him, went pale. Mr. Marsh, I don't think. Tell Carol I'm here. Tell him I have information he needs to hear. 5 minutes later, the gate opened. Carol sat in his study, older and smaller than Clint remembered. Floyd stood in the corner, nervous energy radiating off him like heat. You've got nerve coming back here, Carol said about information. Want to hear it? I don't care what. Clint dropped a file on a desk. Recognize these companies? Tompkins Holdings LLC, Desert Real Properties, Silver State Investments. Carol's face went carefully blank. My businesses. So what? Shell companies tied to construction firms with mob connections. The same construction firms that got federal contracts they weren't qualified for. The same construction firms that built half of Las Vegas's commercial real estate in the 90s and early 2000s. You're fishing. I'm stating facts. You laundered money, Carol. You partnered with organized crime. You built your fortune on fraud. Clint leaned forward, and I have proof. Documented, verified, ready to hand to the FBI if necessary. Floyd made a strangled sound. Dad, is this true? Shut up, Floyd. Oh, it's true, Clint said. I had professionals dig into your background. The kind of professionals who know how to find things people want hidden. Want to know what else they found? Carol's hand shook as he reached for a glass of water. You've been blackmailing a state senator, Congressman Taylor Cannon. Nice guy. Votes your way on zoning issues. Except he's only voting your way because you have photos of him with his mistress. Photos you threaten to release if he doesn't cooperate. You're making this up. I have the photos too. And phone records, and a witness who's willing to testify that you hired him to take those photos. Floyd collapsed into a chair. Jesus Christ, Dad. What did you do? What I had to survive to build something. You build it on lies, Clint said. And now it's coming down. Unless what? Unless you make a choice right now. Walk away from Owen permanently. Delete those photos. Fire your pie. Leave my family alone. Do that, and this information stays buried. You're blackmailing me. I'm giving you a chance, which is more than you gave my son. Carol stared at the file, at the documentation, at the end of everything he'd built. If I agree, you'll really keep this quiet. I don't care about you, Carol. I never did. I care about protecting my son. You stop threatening him. I stop threatening you. Simple trade. And if I don't agree, then I release everything. FBI gets copies. Media gets copies. Senator Cannon gets copies. Your business partners, the ones with mob connections, they get copies too. And you get to spend whatever time you have left explaining to federal prosecutors why you thought you were untouchable. The room went silent. Clint could hear Floyd breathing fast and shallow. Could see Carol's mind working, calculating, trying to find an angle. There wasn't one. Fine, Carol said finally. I'll leave the boy alone. Not good enough. I want it in writing. Signed, notarized. You relinquish all grandparental rights. You agree to no contact. You delete all photos and surveillance data, and you never speak my son's name again. That's non-negotiable. You have 24 hours to get the paperwork done. After that, the files get released regardless. Clint stood up, collected his file, walked to the door. You're a bastard, Carol said quietly. No, I'm a father. There's a difference. Clint paused. You could have walked away clean, Carol. I offered you that option. Instead, you chose to threaten my kid. So now you get to live with the consequences of underestimating the wrong man again. I should have what? Killed me? Made me disappear? Clint smiled. You're not that guy. You're just an old man who got away with bad behavior for so long you forgot that some people don't fold. Some people push back. And some people like me have the skills and resources to turn your own weapons against you. Floyd spoke up. What about me? What about you? Am I part of this agreement? Do you plan to threaten my son? God, no. I want nothing to do with any of this. Then you're fine. Live your life. Just stay away from Owen. I can do that. 24 hours later, the paperwork arrived via courier. Signed. Notarized. Legal. Carol Tompkins had officially relinquished all rights and claims to Owen Marsh. The surveillance photos were confirmed. Deleted. The PI fired. Sarah Townsend reviewed everything. This is airtight. He can't come near Owen again without violating a legal contract. Good. What about the evidence you have on him? The fraud. The blackmail stays buried. As long as he keeps his word, you're trusting him. No, I'm trusting fear. He knows what happens if he breaks the agreement. That's more reliable than trust. Clint flew back to Colorado with the paperwork in his bag and a weight lifted from his shoulders. Owen was safe, protected, free to grow up without Carol's poison infecting his life. That evening, he and Owen made dinner together. Pasta, nothing fancy, but Owen insisted on adding experimental spices that made the sauce questionable but enthusiastic. Dad, this is terrible, Owen said, laughing. Worst meal we've ever made. Want to order pizza? Absolutely. While they waited for delivery, Owen grew serious. Dad, are we going to be okay? Like, really? Okay. Yeah, buddy. We are. What about Grandpa Carroll? He's not going to bother us anymore. I made sure of it. Ow. By showing him that some fights aren't worth having. Ow. And process this. Did you hurt him? No. But I showed him what would happen if he didn't back off. Sometimes that's enough. Is that what you do at work? Show bad guys what will happen. Something like that. Cool. Owen took a bite of terrible pasta and made a face. Still gross though. Yeah, definitely ordering extra pizza. Later, after Owen went to bed, Clint sat on the porch and stared at the mountains. 14 years of service, operations on 5 continents, missions that would never be declassified, men saved, enemies neutralized. All of the preparation for moments exactly like this. His phone buzzed. Ben, how'd it go? Clean. He signed everything. We're done. Good. The team was asking about you. Wondering when you're coming back soon. Need to make sure Owen's settled first. Take your time. We'll be here. After hanging up, Clint allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Not victory. This wasn't about winning, but resolution, closure, the kind that came from standing up to bullies and watching them fold. Regina had texted earlier, asking about Owen, asking if she could visit. She completed her therapy requirements, and was ready to prove she'd changed. Maybe she had, maybe she hadn't, Tom would tell. But that was her journey. Clint's journey was simpler. Be a good father, protect his son, and teach Owen that standing up for what's right wasn't always easy, but it was always worth it. The pizza arrived. Owen called from inside. Dad, food coming. Clint took one last look at the mountains, then went inside. To his son, to his new life, to the peace he'd fought hard to earn. Some battles were fought with weapons and tactics. Others were fought with determination and love. Both required courage. Both required sacrifice. But only one really mattered, and Clint Marsh had just won the only battle that ever would. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comment section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you